thank you to Pat and Talisha for kicking us off in this new year with our first all-access meeting, talking about co and extracurricular requirements and honors. Um, we will come back at the end and talk about the other upcoming sessions, but uh, if you have not yet registered for HERU, you should do that. Shame on you. Hotel rooms are going fast and things like that. So look forward to seeing everybody then. But I'm going to turn it right over to Pat and Talisha and sit back and enjoy what they have to present.
Awesome. Thank you, Jonathan. Hey, everybody. It's good to see you. I know most of you, but not everybody. So quick introduction. Again, my name is Pat Akis, and I'm Associate Vice Provost and Executive Director of Honors here at Tennessee. I was a faculty member at UNC Chapel Hill for 20 years before coming here. And I get to work with my excellent colleague, Talisha. Talisha, introduce yourself if you would, please.
Hi, I'm Talisha Adams, and I work with Pat as the Director of University Honors, and I've been at the University of Tennessee for 9 years now, so excited to be here.
Excellent. And we're going to tag team a little bit. Talisha's going to kind of keep an eye on the chat. We'll debate stuff like we do here on campus at times, but we'll invite back and forth with her and I. So two things I was going to mention before we start. One is we all know that our contexts where we work are really different. So, I don't know as you share if you want to give a little bit, but we know how that could go too. It's, with the number of people online, probably think about concise context if you need to share it. The other thing that we're going to try to do is I think I have 10 slides, 7 questions. And so what I'm going to do is let some discussion drive the slides. So you'll see that I'll start with a question and only the question and ask that many of you, I'll try to contain in terms of our time, chime in response to that question, either your perspective, what you do at your university, whatever fits the question there. So if folks want to just unmute and do that, if it gets kind of clogged, maybe we'll do raise hands. You're also welcome to put things in the chat. So we'll go through each question. We'll share a little bit of research or things that we found that might be interesting to you. And then we'll share a little bit about Tennessee if it's additive in terms of what we do. Hopefully that sounds okay for everybody. And I can't see everybody, so apologies as I work through that. Awesome. All right, here we go. Blank slide, Baron. Okay. So what I wanted to start with is just why do we require anything or should we? I guess why would we require anything beyond coursework? So I'll start there. Anybody chime in why they do it?
Do you want us to just unmute quickly?
I think Linda,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
Okay, great. Because our students show up with so much coursework already under their belt, they don't necessarily need credit hours, but what they do need is professional level experience or unique experiences that they can then take forward.
Awesome. Perfect. John?
Hi, everybody. I think that honors education itself is really the modern version is defined as being experiential learning. And that is both what we do in the classroom with respect to evidence-based active learning, small classrooms, and then that just extends out. So the boundaries of the classroom are kind of taken away in honors, in my opinion. So that practical applied, what we call at Frankie, transdisciplinary work is kind of defines what we are in the future of honors education. That's how I view it.
Yeah, it's great, John. So I hear students are already coming in with a lot of coursework. We want to be additive to that. And John's highlighting the experiential learning and how that's kind of more contemporary of what we need to provide. Others, anything on that? Oh, this might go faster than I thought then.
Can talk as an academic advisor at USF Florida.
Yeah, please.
Hey, so a while back, we had a speaker talking with us about the future of academic advising in general. And he said, in the future, y'all are going to be academic advisors and you're going to be career counselors. That's going to be expected and assumed. And so one of the many ways that extracurriculars can help people grow is it can help people set themselves up for the future that they're building towards.
Excellent, Krista. The career angle there too. You'll see that in some of the material we share in a second. Naomi, were you going to offer something as well?
I was just going to say it builds community because it's a way for students to get to know each other and get to see their faculty or whoever in the community in a different context and potentially feel connection to the community at large.
Perfect. Thank you, Naomi. That really sets up for what I was going to offer next. Um, Let me start with just the way I thought about it a little bit is this high impact practices. And a lot of you know that literature. I'm going to put in the chat there too, the link to high impact practices. I'll do that now just so you all have it. I put a couple links in there, a Tennessee one, and then the link to the high impact practice. But things that we do, many of us do in honors, things like capstone courses, writing intensive courses, etc. Our campus has really narrowed in on four high impact practices: internship, study abroad, undergrad research, and service learning, and started this program they call Vol Edge. And it's for all students, not just honors. But we happen to live in our division of student success that asked us to make it a scholarship requirement in honors. And you'll see if you click on the link there, it has online modules that students go through, but it tries to prep them for one of those high impact experiences and then have reflection afterwards. So to provide the wraparound that makes some of those experiences most meaningful. So we have that, and I think has been prioritized for our university. That seems to go with a little bit of what John talked about, or I think someone talked about for career preparation. The other way I saw in the literature was the episodic engagement. This is a little bit where Talisha and I talk. So I don't know if I can frame this right, Talisha, but I'll let you chime in here, is that I think as an academic, I kind of leaned on, curriculum's enough. We moved from this program that had just a menu of courses to a minor. And I said, boy, there's curriculum. They have a lot to do in our curriculum. It's enough. This is what honors is. And Talisha rightly reminds me all the time is there's so much more to honors. The episodic thing I think is not as, it may be high impact practices, but it's also just those belonging events that you do. Talisha, let me not speak for you. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I think that's a kind of a good balance, Pat. We do kind of go back and forth on that balance of how many co-curricular activities do we offer our scholars in addition to the curriculum that they are taking within the honors program. I think the other unique thing is they're not just honor scholars. That's only one part of the identity. So we're also trying to balance not overwhelming them with all the honors offering, but making sure that we are offering activities and opportunities that they want to attend and that maybe fulfilling some of those gaps from our scholars that they're not receiving in other avenues on campus.
Yeah. Thank you, Talisha. And I think our debate a lot becomes in terms of what's required.
Mm-hmm.
And what we can fund, what choices are out there. One that I was just going to mention, that when I first arrived here, we were doing EAT portfolios and the students didn't like them. They thought it was a checklist and it wasn't very meaningful. So we moved away from that. I don't know how folks feel about that, but let me just stop here for a second and see if other folks want to weigh in about high impact practices versus kind of episodic engagement, whether that's belonging events, craft night, whatever it might be.
One of the things I was going to say on your earlier question that it might connect to the kind of second iteration is, one reason to require things is to get students to make students to do things that are good for them before they're mature enough to know that they're good for them.
Mm-hmm.
But then that gets balanced out with the, honor students are the kind of students who like say yes to everything, and then don't know how to say no and don't know how to necessarily sometimes manage all of the possible opportunities because they like to do everything that's available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so requiring something, I suppose, is on both sides of that. We like to talk about it in terms of pathways. So you get good mentorship and pathways, and then help students identify their own combination of pathways through all the various opportunities instead of trying to say all or none or required them, beyond the curriculum.
Gotcha, Jonathan. So some required because, you know what could be of value to them, but some choice in terms of what those pathways might look like.
Yeah.
Buffy?
I agree with that. We have a pathway program, a pathway model that we're developing. But in my work on high impact practices, particularly with students from what I would refer to as historically excluded minority backgrounds, there is such an importance for transportable capital. So that even though you may apply with the same resume and various different things, the ability to talk about, present product as to what you could do could be a really critical amplifier for you getting to the next step. I wish we weren't in that space, but we still very much are. And so the requirement to engage in those high impact practices is really an opportunity to make sure that our students are leaving with this transportable capital beyond just saying, I have honors on my transcript, which unfortunately may not be enough for some of our students.
That's good, Buffy. Our students have trouble articulating the value of honors as they go and things. So those transferable kind of capital they can take with them is super valuable. I'm going to keep us moving. I think Buffy hit on something that I was going to go to next anyways, was this notion of how do we broaden access for all students? So maybe a couple of you can share about how you think about this, what strategies you use to broaden access for all students to these or extracurricular activities from honors.
Well, I would say one thing, you mentioned study abroad, internship, service learning, and research, but study away is something. So I've gone from USF to WKU in the last year, but at USF, we began including study away as an option for students to gain experiential learning credit, which was required and is a curriculum that we're looking at doing here now. But for our students, particularly where I am, a lot of rural students maybe haven't traveled very far at all. And so a trip, even just one state away or to a unique spot, even within their own state that they've never really explored before, might be the kind of opportunity for them to open up and broaden their horizons and be a stepping stone to something like a study abroad or put them in the way of an internship opportunity or a network or connection. So I think broadening access can sometimes look like baby steps towards the thing that you might expect a student to do.
That's great, Lindy. Do you offer that now? Is it run just by honors, or is that something you're thinking about?
So at WKU, it's something that I hope to offer in the near future. It is something USF is doing now. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
I just have something to contribute to this. I think the answer to this question really depends on the size of the college and the program. And I think that because for me, with 4,250 students in the Frankie Honors College, all is sort of a daunting number.
Yeah.
So yes, we can do all, but we have to have a variety of options and customize pathways for students. We'll be presenting this at the at HERU, but we've developed what we call, using data, what we call the honors engagement score for our students. So we put a scoring system on everything that our student does, and we track the students, all of them, 4,250. And then we've been tracking that with how their percent likelihood of being retained in the honors program and completing. Okay. And we've just noticed that we've got to have a wide swath for a large program like ourselves. Obviously, there's some things we can do for everybody, but not everything. And so, but I think for smaller programs, all can actually mean all. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the size. Just want to put that out there because I know there's everything from what ASU is doing. Tara's got twice the size of me, and down to some very small programs or colleges.
Yeah, thank you, John. That sounds great in terms of how we're going to get to tracking here in a second too. So I want you to come back on that one if you would. I don't have a ton here. The things I read about a little bit. Let me hit these quickly, Krista, and then I'll turn to you. Is that making sure that we think about this philosophically, not just operationally, or not just philosophically, but we operationalize the access in some way. I heard John say this, but multiple pathways to participate, considering things like paid work and caregiving roles, how that counts or not, I guess, for honors, and then how we think about supporting commuters and diverse needs. We have, I wouldn't say a homogeneous population, Talisha, but I'm going to turn to you after Krista, because I don't know if I have a great answer if someone asked me that for our students at this moment. But Krista, let me let you weigh in here before we do.
I've benefited from so many opportunities. And I'd like to share that while working at Rochester Institute of Technology, I connected with a person who facilitated research opportunities for underrepresented future faculty.
Mm.
And she told me about the program and how she runs it and what it all does. In order to attract people from various backgrounds, we have to represent people from various backgrounds in HR, in our staff, faculty, in our student body. So that open communication, welcoming. The more students have a voice in the offerings we have, the more our offerings represent the needs of our students.
Right.
Thanks.
That's good. Thank you, Krista. I'm going to,
In
yeah,
terms of in terms of access, I know that here we're talking about extracurricular and co-curricular activities, but one way at the University of New Mexico we've expanded access for our students is by embedding some of the things that we want actually into the courses. So for example, we're teaching, right? I think we're the only hero institution on Route 66. It's the 100th anniversary. And so we have students are taking a course on Route 66 and will be camping during right our midterm break. We're also doing some public outreach activities with a local museum. And again, these are in conjunction with the class, but they're the kind of skills that are really transferable, and we'll be doing a lot of reflecting on how they're transferable to their careers.
That's great, Naomi. The integration in the class provides the opportunity for all that are taking the curriculum. That's good. Talisha, do you want to offer how you think about it at Tennessee?
Yeah, so I think about it as when we're thinking about recruitment from the admissions lens, we work very closely with our enrollment management colleagues to go into underrepresented areas where we don't often see a lot of applicants. And instead of waiting for the students to come on campus, we're actually going to their cities to present and to answer questions for the scholars and their families. Once they are enrolled on campus, we are offering experience grants to support them in participating in high impact practices. So they are able to apply for the grant within our unit, and we can support them to work with faculty on undergraduate research and or go on study abroad experience or service learning opportunities. In addition, we offer some financial assistance for students and families when they come visit for some of our recruitment events on campus. They can also apply for some financial assistance through our office in order to make the visits more attainable for them as well. So those are three things that I would highlight.
Yeah, and the point about the opportunity to apply for funding to support whether it's study abroad or undergrad research or other or extracurricular activities, we do both a merit and a need-based kind of
We do.
consideration in those applications.
And one other thing, I'll just say, we also think about this from a lens of programming. So if we're having off-campus events, we're providing the transportation because we can't assume that scholars have a vehicle. So just thinking about those little small things that may be a barrier for a student attending some events that we're offering as well.
And we're also embedding them in the LLC, our living and learning community, so that they're available to the folks that are already living there that are required to be there. Jonathan, I noticed you had your hand up and put it down. Do you want to mention something else?
Yeah, you kind of covered it from the Tennessee perspective, but I was going to mention two examples for Houston. Um, First is we're particularly good in undergraduate research. It'd be nice if we could do it more in some of the other areas, but I think every one of our undergraduate research programs that doesn't come with course credit comes with funding. And we're fortunate that we've been able to secure that funding, but that solves the opportunity cost problems. No, you don't have to flip burgers or do undergraduate research. You can get paid to do undergraduate research. And then similarly to what Talisha just said, being in an urban area, we not too long ago discovered you can get Uber business accounts. And we can give out essentially, credits to students to help them do community engaged work.
Yeah, excellent.
to pay for their transportation in addition to public transportation. But as many of you know, that's terrible in Houston.
Helpful to know. Yeah, I put down here just that we count a variety of activities. One thing I don't know if we're being explicit about as we share here, if these are required or extracurricular or they're optional. And that's, very important to consider there when
Yeah.
as we developed our minor and we've created scholarship requirements each year, we ask that they meet some things each year, and that includes the courses, but it also includes perhaps one engagement event or one, here. And we try to make one engagement event be very broad in terms of how they could meet that requirement so that there are multiple avenues to do that. Others that are speaking up about their activities and such, and John, going back to your pathway or the folks that talk about pathways, those required choices or they're optional things that folks do in your programs?
We, I mean, we have required numbers of honors units to complete, like everyone does, and we have a couple required sort of courses, like a first year colloquium course kind of thing. But other than that, we really, and of course the thesis, we do require the thesis, and that. But other than that, we don't have any explicit requirements for students. We just have all of these pathways, and just like all of you, we've got students who are primary majors are fine arts and physics. The one thing we do have though is we do have our own in honors college degree programs for honor students. We have a major, dual degree major, 3 minors, and a leadership certificate. So that's a little bit unique that we do, and that those programs are growing. And I think that is one pathway to the future of honors education. Not for everybody, but yeah, that's kind of answer to that.
Sure, John. And you're talking about some of the curricular aspects, but the or the extracurricular, it sounds like none are required. They're just optional.
Yeah, we just, again, I think I would love to be able to require those things. I think if we're 800 students, we could start to talk about that maybe, or 600, but 4,250, it's just, we don't have the scope is too big. So, yeah, so we don't have any required co-curricular.
Helps a lot, John. And that's what I guess I'm inquiring with others here too. That's where Talisha and I debate a little bit back and forth of how much to require versus making it optional. Some of the observation I have is I think many of us struggle with engagement, folks, choosing to come if it's optional. I think about where their interests lie. And then I've seen some of our activities that we invest people and time, and 8 people out of the 2,000 come. And I just wonder about cost benefit.
Yeah, we face the very same thing. Absolutely. That's I think a challenge for us as well. Is sort of that cost versus impact graph that I always talk to my staff about. Like, there's one quadrant you don't want to be in of that for sure. So, yeah, for sure.
Let me go, Lindy, Sheila, and then Talisha chime in, please. Go ahead, Lindy.
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is the USF model, which we're looking at doing something similar here, but University of South Florida, every honor student has to complete 2 significant experiences in order to graduate. And they have 2,400 students. So scale is there. It's a big program, but there is a wide array of things that count, including like presenting your research at a conference or completing an internship, traveling abroad, study away. But they have to have 2 things from 2 different categories. Like you can't have 2 internships, 2 leadership experiences. They have to be across 2 different things. But I think that has been working really well for them, which is why, I'm interested in doing that here.
Yeah.
And I obviously, grew through that program. So I saw it up close. And I think it was for the student. I mean, of course, you're always going to have box checkers who are just trying to get through it to get it done. But for a lot of students who might not have availed themselves of those opportunities, it's pushed them to look for something. It pushed them to consider something that they might not have otherwise. Because I think our students all believe that if they make a 4.0 grade point average in their program and they, do all the things, then that's going to be enough. But they don't gain the same kinds of experiences that they will if they'll go out, if they'll color outside the lines a little bit. So
yeah, I like it, Lindy. So, it doesn't sound like a ton. It's minimal in terms of 2, but many pathways to choose so they can choose where they want to go. Sheila?
So we're about the size of USF, but we don't require any co-curricular experiences. But what we do allow is we have an 8 course requirement, which includes our freshman seminar and 1 interdisciplinary course, and then the other 6 are honors courses in their major. But we do allow internship if it's relevant, graduate courses, study abroad, undergraduate research, or the thesis to count for up to 2
Hmm.
of their course requirements.
Okay.
And so that's how we encourage students to do a lot of these other things. But we have what we're calling the RSVP challenge, apparently, as parents. We did not teach our children about how to RSVP and what it means. And
Right.
so that has been something. So we're getting ready to start thinking about basically if to deal with the fact that you think 45 or 50 or 60 or 100 are going to show up and 4 show up. How to deal with that is kind of, we're reiterating the importance of it, but also we're thinking we're going to start taking names as people who come, and if you RSVP and you don't come, you get a nice little message that talks about what protocols are associated with saying you're going to come to something, because this is it's been especially hard when we form relationships and we're expecting students to come to things.
Right. Definitely, Sheila. Thanks for offering that. Talisha, let me go back to you just to offer. I want to say one more thing about UT before we move off of this one, but any response what I was saying or anything you want to offer here?
Yes. I also want to say that there's a lot of great chatter that's happening in the chat too. So
Okay,
folks who, if
great.
you don't get a chance to chime in verbally, there's a lot of conversations happening there. Um, and I think all this is amazing, and I'm taking some notes of some opportunities as well. But I think that balance is definitely key. One of the things that I really love about the opportunity is also just giving them the opportunity to talk, to verbalize about their experience, because I think someone mentioned earlier that we don't want them to just graduate and be able to say I was an honors graduate. We want them to be able to talk about their diverse range of experiences. And another thing is we offer a lot of programs, but we're really partnering with campus partners and community partners to get them connected to resources. And for us, that's even more important than them just coming to an honors event, because we want them to be successful long term. But outside of that, I think people have covered everything else that I had in the chat or verbally.
That's great. And I think it maybe Lindy made me think of this as one of the things we're doing with our honors coaches. We don't have academic advisors. They have different academic advisors. So just our specific honors coaches, we've thought a little bit about their first year and what they're focused on in terms of helping them get adjusted. But second year, what high impact practices really are meaningful to you? What do you think? Where do you want to head? And do a lot of time talking about their paths of what they want to cultivate. And we do the same thing in their third year around their capstone of how they want to achieve their capstone. So I think that's an important part of what we do. We've hit on this some. Sheila really did a good job with the curriculum. And do we integrate these co-curricular, extracurricular, and curricular aspects? It sounds like Sheila allows some of those to count for the course requirements. I saw the literature a little bit about, having the class, then having experience and reflecting on it being very valuable. We've learned in our curriculum, the question you'll get a lot is, why is this useful to me in my major? Or why do I need this for my career? So we try to be real explicit with that in the class. But others in terms of integration between the curricular requirements and any co or extracurricular, any really strong links you make there? I know everyone has different curriculum too, in terms of minors or not, or other courses, but anything
I have a comment on this, Pat. One of the things that we've been doing we have a degree program, a transdisciplinary degree program called the Bachelor of Creative Intelligence and Innovation. And part of all the courses in the curriculum have an industry partner, which is a corporate nonprofit or governmental partner that brings a real challenge to the classroom that they work on. So it converts the classroom experience into an experiential learning, almost like a group internship experience, similar to how Georgia Tech has done vertical integration projects with continuing research and such. We do that here too. But really engaging the community, engaging corporate nonprofit partners. And how we do it is, as students move through the curriculum, they start with very broad challenges from industry partners, and they work towards an immersive, that the curriculum actually drives them towards an immersive internship or an entrepreneurial internship. So it's really just kind of bringing those two things together. We've been experimenting with this and having some success.
That's great, John. I think we're doing something a little bit parallel here. We do try to consider students' goals and for some of our, well, I'll get back to John's link here in a second, but we have heard, and you all do too, about students interested in professional and graduate school. So we try to offer some co-curricular or extracurricular programming as graduate school fellows, law school fellows, where they're going to observe classes or talk to law school students. We try to think about the goals that they have. And I think the connection with John said is our two minors, one is leadership and one is on complex problem solving. So we engage them in some of the UN 2030 developmental goals. They'll think about it local, and we hope to also build to partners with probably more like social issues versus business and technology, but partner with organizations that try to help solve problems. So we feel like our curriculum will lead them to engage in experiences that'll be outside the classroom. Anybody else on this one before I keep moving? One that we've talked a lot about here is, as you think about, well, what should be required for honors? What do we think students need? And Talisha highlighted this. They're doing all kinds of stuff already, right? They overload their plate already. So that's that debate too about how much are we asking outside of their courses and core extracurricular requirements from honors when they're already involved in all these other activities. So how do you all think about that? The demands, the ask, the offerings you do as compared to everything else they're doing on campus?
Well, I'll speak up again because nobody else has been.
I appreciate it, Lindy. Others can, but I appreciate you diving in. Please do.
I'll be that student in the class. My colleague Naomi Rowland, who's on this call somewhere, she conducted a survey of students in here at WKU and asking them, like, what are you missing? What are you not getting from your honors education? And a lot of them talked about the very things that we are just discussing in the realm of experiential learning and high impact practice, particularly around professionalism, professional development, networking, those kinds of things. So while students may be doing a lot of things outside of honors, if they're not doing those things and they recognize themselves that they need them, then maybe we need to have honest conversations about picking the best things to do instead of just all the things that they do. And so if you're already the president of two organizations, then signing on to be the president of a third organization is probably not your best bet, but instead maybe doing this other thing that's going to give you a different set of skills that you're in need of. But I think our students do need this. I don't think that as long as it's not just one more thing to do, one more box to check, and it really meets a need. And I think that can look different depending on where you are. But now I think it's an important question to ask, but I think we're still hitting on a need for students.
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot about what's meaningful to them, which is going to be different for each student. Manisha?
Yeah, so Monisha Pashupathy, I'm the dean at the University of Utah Honors College, for those of you who I've not met. We've embedded our co-curricular requirements into a learning community structure that spans the second, third, and fourth year. Our first year learning community is curricular. And one of so we do this thing with the second year where we try to get students to connect across campus or out into the community. And the way it's structured is that they choose a pathway based on the things that they were going to do outside of the Honors College. And then they engage in some reflection, and the pathways there's a career development, a leadership, and a service pathway. And then we do have a kind of catch-all that some students choose called the personal growth, where they can kind of do their own assembly. And we weren't sure how it was going to work, but it has turned out to be something students really have appreciated and really enjoyed, because it is things they were already doing but the chance to put it together in an intentional way and to do a little reflecting on it and have some exchanges with staff about how it's working has been really good. So, and it's a relatively, in that cost impact trade-off, it's been relatively low cost for the impact. So,
that's great, Manisha. I think you're hitting on the key thing about processing it afterwards, their experience and the
yeah,
meaning they make out of it. Let me get
yeah.
Buffy and John here next.
Was going to say this has been an ongoing debate with our team in terms of capturing the fact that we have many very engaged students that are just used to jumping onto campus. I can think of one student who every time I blink is in another club and doing something else, and doing it well, and other students who really are just so academically focused that they are just in their classes and we don't feel like they're taking advantage of the comprehensive experience they could actually be having and making connections and relationships. And so we've built in requirements that our students attend at least 2 lectures every semester, 2 cultural events every semester, and complete 10 hours of community service. And then we ourselves offer many opportunities for students to do that within the program, or within the college, so that they're not at a loss and trying to find that helps those students that are a little bit more introverted and not out there kind of making connections on their own. But we also allow students to fulfill those requirements by doing other things. So if they're actively involved in their major and they're going to lectures or events in that way, they are able to count those. And we are able to do this because we have a tracking system. We use something called Suitable. And so every time they complete a lecture, they have to go in, they have to describe what it was. Sometimes they need to upload some type of artifact to kind of document it, which does lead them to a little bit the creation of a digital portfolio. But again, even though we're doing this, we are in a bit of a debate because we have very overextended students, and I'm very concerned about just their wellness overall of trying to balance all of this. And so we're trying to think about what we could streamline, and what we could add in. And then I would say we do a lot more additional program just to build that community, which we were talking about before. So some is just social and fun. Others are specifically geared towards developing those professional skills, that transportable capital that I talked about, and trying to find some type of balance between when you can just kind of go and do it yourself outside, or when you could seek that within the honors program. But we're in kind of 2 camps, like the Hatfields and the McCoys, in this, trying to figure out what our step is.
That's great, Buffy. Thanks for offering that. I don't think Talisha and I argue that much, but I do really like what you shared there about they're already doing this in their another college or another experience, and we allow that to count. We have as students in our business college often get these high ranking internships in New York, but in one of our programs we require an internship in Tennessee. And we really have this tension about, my God, we don't want to stifle this opportunity for them, but we also have these program requirements. So we go back and forth a little bit too. John, and then I'll move on after this one.
Yeah, just quick. One thing I maybe all of you have seen is this generation of students coming up, in particular honor students, are very much interested in entrepreneurial type of things. And different institutions have different levels of entrepreneurial mindset development or growth. I mean, Monisha at University of Utah, they got Lasan there, which is probably the premier example. We don't have any. University of Arizona, we're not that far ahead. We actually had to build what we call the venture studio at Frankie in our college and hire staff members. We've got now almost 200 students in the program, completely co-curricular. But that entrepreneurial desire for students to go down that path is something we've really seen emerge in the last 5 years, and I've got to believe that many others here have as well. So that would be one thing outside of honors that students are doing, which begs the question of, do you build support system within your program or college to do that?
Sure. And do you value the outcomes of that, which I'm sure we do. The thing I wanted to is at Tennessee, we talk a lot about recognizing their current commitments, things that they've already devoted to. And the challenge of the time management, and then what are we going to require in lieu of that. I've always tried to think about like belonging as honors identity. Honors is one piece of their identity, and how do they connect or integrate that together with other things that they're involved in. So Talisha thinks I'm crazy, but I want to have an honors intramural basketball team, an honors Dungeons and Dragons event. I mean, I just think about things that they're already doing that might make sense to also integrate their honors identity. Talisha, anything before I move here?
Nope, I think you're good to go.
Okay, just want to check if anything in the chat too. We covered this a little bit about, I mentioned the checklist aspect. How do y'all avoid making it feel like a checklist? We've talked about some already, things that are relevant for their future, allowing students choice. Is there anything that we're missing in terms that we haven't talked about to make sure that co and extracurricular activities don't feel like something they have to do on a checklist?
I'll start. I lean towards giving them what they ask for. So, looking at the student data and letting that drive kind of some of our offerings. So they may be receiving some activities elsewhere. Maybe they don't want that or need that from honors. So there really is no sense of us offering those things, but our data can really kind of help guide us on some of our programs. And we want to have programs that they actually want to come to or programs that they request. In addition, we have a variety of student leaders in our office. So we try to lean on them to help lead some of the activities and programs. So that way the students can see their peers at these events and maybe they're more likely to attend and become in those leadership roles in the future as well.
Yeah, our core HSEC committee that, the students really prepare and deliver a lot on the engagement activities helps out a lot. Krista?
In connection with Talisha's points, I'm going to come in quoting one of my favorite books, What the Best College Teachers Do, Ken Bain. And his main message was, how do we get people to learn, or what do the best college teachers do? They create the circumstances where the students invent calculus because they need it. Imagine the investment. If they want to create something and they figure out how to get there, and you're there, you're helping them only if they need help and if they ask it. They can get there. But my training as a health and wellness my training as a coach helps me help people create their pathway towards their goal.
Yeah, that's good, Krista. And we serve all 11 colleges here on campus. So there's really different needs for the ag students compared to the engineering, social work. So it's a wide variety of needs to meet. Just for time, I'm going to move us a little bit here. Literature talks a little bit about attendance-based models kind of lack meaning. So if that's all you're doing is checking if they attended, the value might not be there. That this not only time, but the interactions that happen, the feedback and reflection drive the meaning there. I wanted this, we already, I think someone mentioned suitable. We don't have suitable, but one issue that always comes up is how do you track and advise without too much staff burden? We have a system where students have to sign in and we're tracking that way in terms of attendance, but anybody have more to offer? Or I know someone said suitable, if they want to say a little bit about that, or do people have alternatives that they think are really good about tracking co and extracurricular activities without too much staff burden?
I'd also like to ask Pat, are people requiring some type of reflection from their activities?
Good.
I'll jump in and say that because I mentioned suitable, that we heavily, we love suitable as a staff. Our students are realizing that it wasn't optional now and they have to do it. And so I've been making a lot of graduating seniors cry and that they can't graduate from honors until they go back and complete it. But it's been really helpful for us. We're in a university where it's very data driven. And so being able to track particularly because we kind of talk about this idea that we don't own our students. Our students are in these other colleges, and then they're also duly enrolled in the honors college, but they're not specifically our students. And so when we're trying to make the case for what we bring to the institution, how we're contributing, how we're helping students, being able to pull that data from Suitable has been really helpful for us. So on a practical side, that's really great. Depending on the way that you set it up, it can alleviate a lot of some of the burden. I'm, as the associate dean, pretty much the only academic advisor right now for honors. So being able to build that out and contain a lot of that information within Suitable, and they can follow along. And then the other pieces, and I think it goes back to when you were saying making it more than a checklist. What I'm finding with Suitable is our way to engage with them around this notion that they're writing their story. They're writing their story about their journey through honor. So it's not just things that you're doing to get through, but it's really, these are chapters. These are highlights. And at the end, you have this kind of, it builds out essentially a digital portfolio for you without you having to necessarily sit down and do all of it. So it's been really effective. It's not perfect. There are a lot of things that we are constantly in conversation with Suitable to see if we can change and improve upon. But given that we have a very small staff in comparison to the number of students that we're working with, this was definitely the best option for us.
Yeah, it sounds good, Buffy. I think earlier I said like we got away from e-portfolios. I think probably the problem was we didn't do enough with them on the back end, to help students translate it into meaningful materials, and maybe Suitable helps with that. Manisha and Lindy?
Yeah, as so we did this kind of on the cheap in that we made that learning community into a Canvas course.
Mhm.
And we enroll the entire second year cohort into the Canvas course, and then the assignments are in there for reflections, and we kind of lean into the selfie world and have them upload photos.
Yeah.
And then it's fairly easy for either trained peer leaders or staff to kind of give responses, certify that things have been done and things like that. And it's been working. So far, it's like any other solution. It's not perfect, but it's been surprisingly functional for us.
That's great. We have a little trouble with our IT folks allowing Canvas to be used for anything but courses.
Oh,
But we have some of that set up, but they give us a little bit of challenge with that. Lindy, and then I'll move on.
Yeah, that's what we had done that at USF too for a while. That also USF has this very enviable internal tracking system for honor students that was built and programmed by internal people, which the rest of us don't have. But we do have Suitable, but I have it here at WKU, but I have a question about degree works and if these experiential learning piece, like if there are requirements, can you track them in Chris is saying no, and I know USF uses degree work, so it's not trackable in degree works, or has anybody hacked that? Nope. I'm guessing that. I guess no.
A
Then.
possible workaround would be a note. On DegreeWorks, you can go up and click notes and insert a note. I've only put in a note as an academic advisor. I don't know if a student can. I like the students to do the work as much as
Yeah.
possible.
No, I'm not talking about like the work that the students do, but like once we
Tracking.
say we have a Blackboard course or Canvas course and we see that the student has done the work, but to track it in degree works, is there a space for us to go in and say, yes, this student has completed this element of a requirement that's not a class,
You can put in words.
but not like a
To
box.
complete your 2 experiential
Right.
learnings, click this Google form and fill out this form telling us
Right.
that you completed this.
But not
Now, somebody on a technical end might be able to say yes.
to add that. Okay.
We
Yeah.
did when we developed or when Mississippi State adopted DegreeWorks, we had a block that was devoted to honors, and we were able to put in there the honors courses that they took, filtered in there. But we also had their capstone requirement now we have to, I think, we go in manually once we get that paperwork to say this has been approved and it's been
Yeah.
accepted. So there was some building when we first adopted into DegreeWorks that
Yeah.
was through our IT. So that if that is what you're kind of asking, that we have
Right.
that.
Yeah, we're under the impression that that could be built out for us if we make nice with all the right people. But like that's just conversation. So I was curious if anybody had successfully done it.
Yes, and it was nice that it's a separate block, so it can be something I
Right.
can go right to and see, or it can be hidden if it's not
Right.
needed by everyone. Yeah, we played nice right from the start. We were lucky.
That's good, Anastasia. What I've heard around DegreeWorks here is the amount of cultivation really matters, right? How much, like you mentioned, about what you have to put into it and that kind of thing, drives a little bit of the utility with it. These are some of the things from the literature I was just going to mention. Most of y'all hit on that. We have a program called Blackthorn. We're integrated with Salesforce, so that's our event software. That a high impact practice, the link I put in the chat there, VolEdge, that unit collects data about pre-study abroad, the study abroad experience, and the reflection afterwards. So some of these are done with external audiences for us. Let me see what else I have, because I know we're running into about a couple minutes here. Probably should have led with this one about outcomes, because if we're going to require something, especially, right, we want to be really clear about why we're requiring it, how we're assessing it, and then making sense of it, whether that's a high impact practice in career readiness or if it's just a notion of belonging or an honors identity. So I probably don't have enough time to hit here. I just kind of lessons learned for us, I think. The flexibility is really important. The choice, I think, is really important. We try to really celebrate. We're trying to have a midpoint minor celebration or something like in school counseling, we did this carrot program where, it was a diamond and you had 4 carrots and you got to this point. So some sort of celebration of things when they do, perhaps these co and extracurricular would be really important as well. So I think that bottom line there, I think, is a takeaway for me. If it's required, what's required, we think a lot about high impact practice with reflection, trying to get some structured choice in those multiple pathways. And then if you're going to require it, support it. And so just want to offer that. And I know we're sort of at a close, Jonathan, so I apologize if I didn't get everybody weighing in. I know there's a lot of folks in the chat and such, but hopefully some of this discussion was useful for y'all. It was for us.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Pat and Talisha. I think it is good discussion. We can kind of formally close it here in a couple minutes and then stay on and continue some side conversations for a few minutes after that. And it may also lead us to want, given the good conversation around this, we may want to take it back to the board and add some additional kind of subtopics about this, and as we continue to plan CoHE cycles. Obviously, I'm assuming some of this conversation will continue in Hiru as well. But first, let me get everybody to help me thank Pat and Talisha for putting the conversation together. We really appreciate it. I think it was content heavy and lots to continue to unpack. The other thing I wanted to do here as we close is point to our next session, which is an all-access session on February 12th, in which we're going to try to unpack, kind of the mirror image of this. What is an honors curriculum? Christine Evans and Wisconsin and Michael Furman of Florida State are going to lead that kind of conversation. So I think that'll be a nice bookend for what we talked about today. But I think, let's make that the formal close and kind of continue however you want to have the conversation for the next, I know I can stay on for the next 10, 15 minutes if there's interest. But I know other people are, hitting witching hours or happy hours or maybe midday for some.
Childcare, all the above.
All the things. So
Right.
As an excuse, if you need a reason to leave, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be happy to hang. I know you probably can't, Talisha, but thanks everyone for coming, and I'll be around a little bit for a while.